Good evening, YouTube. Today is the 28th of June, and therefore 4 weeks since I had my TLIF surgery. And hence I thought this would be a good time for an update. Let me start by saying that this week has been the most interesting week in terms of the mix of positives and negatives. So looking forward to sharing all that with you. It did dawn upon me that I kind of assume that everyone's watched every single video I've posted thus far and hence know the whole story. So I thought, let me maybe give a quick overview of why I had the surgery and then kind of get into how I'm feeling at the kind of 4-week mark. So a reminder of the type of surgery. It was a TLIF surgery with dynamic stabilization. So the approach is very much the same as a classic fusion with a couple of key differences. So the similarities, they had to go in through my back rather than my abdomen. They had to remove the entire disc as it was completely compressing my sciatic nerve at L5-S1. They then had to make use of a spacer or a cage as for what you might use in a classic fusion, as well as rods and pedicle screws. The key difference in my surgery is that the objective is not fusion in the space between L5 and S1, but rather to preserve some of the motion. So basically the spacer is there to serve as a bit of a shock absorber, I guess. And then the screws have got hinges and the rods are flexible to make sure that some motion remains. So, people would ask, should I have had the surgery? So the answer is very much yes. I mean, I had no choice. I had managed a degenerative disc at L5-S1 for nearly 15 years conservatively, with everything from chiropractors to physiotherapists to acupuncture, etc., and occasionally going to the doctor to get pain and muscle relaxant injections. But in the last 6 weeks prior to surgery, I did something which basically just finished the disc at L5-S1 off, which means that there was a significant loss of disc height with a lot of the disc basically herniating and the disc material pressing on my sciatic nerve, and not only causing debilitating pain, but also I was starting to show the early signs of what they call drop foot, which essentially is weakness on the kind of left-hand side where the nerve was being compressed. So long story short, if I didn't go for the surgery, there was quite a high risk that over time I could have had permanent nerve damage and lost the use of my left leg, and hence why I'm saying I had no choice. So, given how much better I felt since surgery alone, I would say the answer is yes. I would have the surgery every day of the week and twice on Sunday. I guess the question just is, to what extent will I be able to get back to normal exercise activities, kind of post rehab? So that's what we're here to see and discuss and share. So in terms of how I'm feeling now, let me maybe start with the negatives. So normally start with the positives. I thought maybe let's balance things out a little bit this time around. So the most interesting thing was when I finished the last of the 3 pain meds. So I still had 2 of the 3 pain meds left, going into the 4th week, and about 2 or 3 days into the 4th week, I finished those off. And let me tell you, I woke up the next morning feeling as though I'd had major surgery, and pretty much for the first time since the surgery. It wasn't so much pain at the surgery site per se. It was more kind of discomfort. It felt a little bit like, if you haven't worked out for a long time and you all of a sudden go in and do a kind of heavy workout, except of course all the kind of achiness and soreness was kind of focused around my lower back muscles, the muscles in my sides, and also in my core. So since then, I have been using a bit of paracetamol, or I think in the US it's called Tylenol, just to kind of keep the edge off, as well as some muscle relaxants, as I still have some spasms in my left glute after the surgery. And as I mentioned in previous sessions, it's not necessarily because I think the nerve is still compressed. I'm pretty sure they've managed to clear that up for reasons I'll explain a bit later. But I just think because the nerve was so badly compressed for the month before surgery, and I had the muscle spasms that were so bad prior to surgery, the kind of muscle atrophy was very bad during that period. And effectively now I'm starting from scratch building those muscles up. So I think it's more a case of overuse than it is anything to do with nerve compression. I also introduced icing, or cryotherapy, as I may call it. And the early signs of that is also that it's making quite a big difference. So, and that's because I was still using an anti-inflammatory, naproxen, up until well into the 4th week, as I mentioned, and that was one of the last ones I came off. So yeah, definitely making a difference in terms of the inflammation and how I'm feeling. So by now, which is kind of 4 or 5 days after I stopped with those meds, I'm kind of getting used to it. And yeah, it's just amazing how those prescription meds actually help to keep the pain under control and kind of mask the symptoms during the first weeks. I mean, I guess if I have any learnings from it, I would probably look at it and go, could I have weaned myself off it in a little bit more of a controlled manner rather than all in one go? I think the answer is yes. If I could do it again, I would, but of course I don't have that option. So anyway, let me move on to the positives of what I'm feeling. So first of all, sitting is becoming a lot more comfortable. So I've been going into the office more frequently over the last week, and I can relatively comfortably sit for half a day at a time. Obviously, I've got to get up and move around a little bit, kind of once every hour or so, just to make sure that I don't get too stiff and sore. But you know, certainly a huge improvement on before, where I could only sit for half an hour before I had to go and lie down. So that's very positive. Then moving on to the sciatic nerve itself, although it still feels a little bit irritated when I stretch my hamstring, and I have to be a bit careful with that, it has definitely improved a lot since surgery. So although I still have some numbness on the outside of my left foot, I would say that I've probably regained 50 to 60% of the surgery I lost prior to surgery. So I'm positive that this will continue to improve over the next 3 or 4 weeks. And look, you know, if it hasn't improved completely by then there's probably quite a high risk of, you know, permanent nerve damage, but fingers crossed that won't happen. The other thing that's interesting is, you know, previously lying down was the most comfortable, and I would then start feeling uncomfortable if I stood, walked around, or walked for too long. And that's kind of reversed now. So what's happening is I'm quite comfortable being upright. And as soon as I lie down for too long, I really feel like I need to start getting up and moving around. Otherwise, I do get a bit sore and achy. So I guess that's probably the kind of mix you want if you prefer to be active. Going on to the exercises, so I'm continuing to walk and do the kind of basic exercises I was given just post-surgery and then a couple of weeks post-surgery. And it's kind of funny how my perspective has changed as well. So prior to surgery, as well as just after surgery, I was really keen to do more and more, be a bit more aggressive in terms of the exercises I did to try and get, you know, back to fully recovered quicker. Whereas ever since then, you kind of realize just how kind of boring and frustrating recovering from surgery is. And kind of now my perspective on it is that I just want to make sure that I don't do anything to re-injure myself and require revision surgery, and therefore quite happy just to take it a little bit more easy, just to make sure that I heal properly before I go into something that is a bit more heavy. So look, I can now walk for up to 3 kilometers, which is about 1.5 miles as well. So getting stronger, and I mentioned previously, I'm able to walk about 10,000 steps a day. I don't really at this stage have much of a desire to try and push much harder to, like, you know, 2 or 3 miles in one go. I just don't really see the point in that, and I think we will kind of get there over time as well. So that's it. So that's basically where we are at 4 weeks post-surgery. I think maybe 6 weeks would be a good time to give an update, unless something game-changing happens before then. And, you know, quite excited about the next month as well, because you know, having read up on bone healing, you know, when you get a fracture, when you have surgery like what I've had, it takes 6 to 8 weeks for bones to heal. So, you know, if we can get through the next 2 to 4 weeks, I think I'll then be in a space where I'm a lot more comfortable that the surgery's been a success, and can then kind of start increasing the activity and getting back to normal. So I'll update you a bit more then. Thanks.